Let's see how to run a chi-square test for independence using Google Sheets. Now on the screen here you can see that I've already entered my contingency table, in other words my observed values, and I have a two-way table in which I have two categorical variables. In this case those two variables are type of lunch and afternoon energy levels. But whatever your two categorical variables are, the method for running your chi-square test for independence will be the same. Okay, let me start by zooming in a bit. I want to make sure that you can see everything clearly. So I'll just enlarge everything and I'll turn this into 125%. There we go. All right, so to give you a quick rundown of what we're going to be seeing here, the first thing we'll be entering here are the number of degrees of freedom that we're working with. And let me say that's the only thing we'll be doing by hand. Everything else we'll be doing will be done using functions inside Google Sheets. Once we've written down the number of degrees of freedom, we'll be seeing how to create our table of expected frequencies or expected values. We'll then move on to find the p-value. Following that, we'll see how to convert that p-value into a chi-square statistic. And once we've found our chi-squared statistic, we'll be seeing how we can use Google Sheets to find the critical chi-squared value given the degrees of freedom as well as the significance level. And so I'll be doing that for two significance levels here, for 5% as well as for 10%. Okay, so that's the rundown of what we're going to be covering, so let's get started. As I said, the first thing we'll be entering here are the number of degrees of freedom. Remember, given a contingency table, the degrees of freedom will equal to the number of columns we have, -1, times the number of rows we have, -1. And so in our table here, we can see that we have 3 columns and 2 rows. And consequently, our degrees of freedom will be equal to 3 minus 1 times 2 minus 1, or 2 minus 1 times 3 minus 1, which equals to 2 times 1, which is just 2. So our degrees of freedom is equal to 2. So I enter that. Okay, as I said, that's the only thing we'll be doing by hand. Now let's start using Google Sheets functions. So the first thing we'll do here is add a totals column as well as a totals row to our contingency table. And so what I'll do here, I'll quickly type totals. There we go. And I'll turn that into a bold font like so. And I'll do the same up here, so I'll write totals. Okay, and again, I turn that into a bold font. There we go. All right, now to obtain the total of each of the rows, I'll place myself in the cell on the far right-hand side of each of them. And inside that cell, I go ahead and type equals to, and then I'll use the sum function. And so if I start just typing sum, S-U-M, I can see that Google Sheets has found the function sum for sum, and so I click on that, and then I select the entire row. Once I've done that, I close the parentheses on the function, and I click on Enter. Notice here that Google Sheets suggests an autofill, and even though it's tempting, I have a tendency of not letting it autofill, so I click on the cross right here. The reason for that is because the autofill isn't always perfect, so I'd rather be in full control of what we get here. Okay, now for Google Sheets to do the same on the next row, I place myself in the cell with the previous total, so that was 70, and with my cursor, I hover over the lower right-hand corner of that cell, and you should see the arrow, or the cursor, turn into a black cross. There we go. Once that's done, I click and drag that cell into the next one, and then I let go. Done. This 60 is now the sum of the second row of that table. Okay, so those are the first 2 rows taken care of. Now let's do the same for the columns. So for our first column, again, I go ahead and type equals to, and I want the sum function again, so I type SUM, and I select the sum function right here. I then select the first column, like so. So I only select the first 2 rows of that column, and then I close that pair of parentheses, and I click on Enter. Now that I have that total, I go back into that cell, and I do the same thing as I did previously. So I hover over the lower right-hand corner of that cell until my cursor changes into a cross, like so. And now I click and drag all the way across that bottom row there. There we go. And so now the second cell we have here is the total of the second column. And this 45 we have here is the total of the third column. Now for the last cell we have in the lower right-hand corner of our table here, we could add up the totals that we have above it, or we could add up the totals that we have on the side here, so the totals 45, 40, and 45. But instead, I'll go inside this cell, and I'll go ahead and type equals again, sum again, and I select the function. And this time, I'll go ahead and select all of the data inside the table. So I select the entire 3 columns and 2 rows. And really that's just to show you that you can add up more than just a row or a column. Once that's done, I close the parentheses and I click on Enter. And we're done. We now have all the totals we need. Okay, now what I like to do, just to make it clear that those are the totals and not part of the actual data, I put all of these values in a bold font. So I click there, and I do the same at the bottom of the table, like so. And I'll add some background colors to my cells here. So for the totals title, I'll put that in a fade blue here, like so. I'll do the same down here. There we go. And as I'm doing that, I notice that the font size seems to be different here. So let me quickly change that. I'll turn that into 12 as well. Okay. There we go. So everything's the same size. Okay. I also put the grand total, so the 130 we have here, in a different color. So if I put a background color there, or a fill color, I should say. So I'll put a faint red. Okay. And I'll put a cell color for these totals here. So let me do that. Something like this. And something like this. Okay, finally, let me add an outline to my table. So I'll add the grid, like so, and like so. Okay, now the reason I do all that is twofold. First of all, I want my contingency table to look good. So if I were to share this contingency table, or if I were to take a screenshot to insert it into my work, it's something that I could easily present. And the second reason is that it's very important to distinguish the total values that we have from the data that we've collected. And I feel that this does that job pretty well. Alright, that being said, I carry on. The next thing we need to do is create our expected frequencies table. And so I'll do that underneath here, and I'll quickly make a title, expected frequencies, or expected values I could also write. In fact, I'll do that, expected values. There we go. I'll put that in a bold font. And to do that, what I initially do is simply make a copy-paste of the table that I have above it. So I select all of that, and I click on Edit, followed by Copy, and then I place myself down here, and I select Edit again, or I click on Edit, I should say, and I click on Paste. Okay, so for now, this is an exact copy of that table. But the expected values table won't contain the same numbers as our observed values table. So I'll go ahead and delete everything that I see in the white cells. So if I select all of those cells and I click on Delete, done. Notice that all of the totals have now adjusted to 0, which is perfectly normal. Alright, now to complete our expected values table, the only cell we really need to spend time on is the very first cell in that table. So that's the cell in position row 1, column 1. Or in this context, home packed lunch and low energy level. Remember, each expected value is calculated using our table of observed values. Indeed, for this cell, remember that's row 1, column 1 of our table, we'll use the totals of row 1, column 1 in our observed values table. And in this case, those totals are 70 and 45. And to find the expected value, we'll be multiplying those two totals together, so 70 times 45, and dividing that by the grand total. So that is the 130 we have in the lower right-hand corner of our contingency table. And so in our expected values table, I place myself in that cell again, and I go ahead and type equals to, and I select the total of row 1, so that's the 70 I have here, which is in column E, row 4 on Google Sheets, so I select that cell, times the total of column 1 in my observed values table, so that's the 45 I have here, and so I select that cell, and I divide that by the grand total, so that's the cell with the 130. So I select that cell. And now that that's done, I can click on Enter. Okay, so that's the expected value we should expect to see in that cell. But now, rather than doing that for each of the remaining empty cells in our expected values table, here's something very important for you to do. Making sure that I'm in the cell we just found, so row 1, column 1 of our expected values table, I focus on the formula bar at the top of the page here. And in fact, I click on that formula bar. The idea here is I need to tell my spreadsheet to find all the totals of the rows we have in column E, and to find the totals of the columns we have in row 6. And last but not least, I need to tell it that the grand total will always be inside the cell E6. That's the cell with the 130. And here's how we do each of those things. So again, entering that formula, and moving my cursor to the far left-hand side of it, to tell it that the totals of the rows are all in column E, I place a $sign in front of the E here, like so. And that column is now taken care of. Next, I need to teach it to find all the totals of the columns inside row 6. So I move my cursor along until I get to B6 here, and I place myself in between the B and the 6, so right in front of the 6, and I add a $sign right here. And so now it will only fetch the totals of the columns inside row 6. Last but not least, I need to tell it that the grand total will always be in the cell E6, remember, that's the cell with our 130, and so I place myself in front of the E, and I type a $sign, as well as in front of the 6, and I type a $sign as well. Once all of that's done, I click on Enter again. Now, as far as the cell that we had already found is concerned, that makes no difference whatsoever. But now, thanks to what we've just done, if I hover over to the lower right-hand corner of that cell, until it turns into a cross again, I can now click and drag that across the two columns, like so. And with my cursor still hovering over the lower right-hand corner of the cell I just dragged to, I carry on and I click and drag this whole thing into the next row, like so. And we're done. We now have our table of expected values. Now, as you can see here, this is going quite far into the decimals, and there's no need to go that far. So if I select all of the cells in my expected values table, like so, and I'll reduce all of that to say 1 decimal place. So to do that, I go ahead and select this button right here, decrease decimal places, and I click on that a few times. There we go. That's our expected values table taken care of. All right, now I'm tempted to say that we've now gotten all of the dirty work out of the way. And now that that's done, we're ready to find the p-value. So to find the p-value, I place myself in the cell that I made for it, so right beneath my p-value title here, and I type equals to, followed by chi, so C-H-I. And you can see here that we have quite a few options, but if I scroll down, you can see that I have CHISQ.TEST, which stands for Chi-Squared-Test. And so if I click on that, you can see that it's asking me for two things. It's asking me for the observed range, followed by the expected range, and both of those need to be separated by a comma. Well, to enter the observed range, I select all of the white cells in my observed values table, so all of these. There we go. I type a comma, and I now do the same in my expected values table, so I select all of the white cells. There we go. Once that's done, I close the parentheses for that function, and I click on Enter. And we're done. We now have the p-value. And again, I'll go back on that cell and I'll reduce the number of decimal places we have, which again I do right here. So I click on this button a few times. There we go, and I'll reduce it to say 3 significant figures, like so. And clearly we can see here that our p-value is very, very small, and so we could pretty much already conclude that we'd have to reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the two variables are not independent. But that's not the purpose of this video at all. We're solely focusing on the mechanics of Google Sheets. All right, now that I have the p-value, let's see how to turn that into a chi-squared statistic. Well, for that, I place myself in the cell that I made earlier on, right here, so underneath my chi-squared statistic title. And again, I'll go ahead and type equals to, and once again, I'll go ahead and type CHI for chi, and this time I'm going to use the chi-squared inverse function. So that's the chi, so CHISQ.INV for inverse. And so I select that function. And this time it's asking me for two things again. It's asking me for a probability as well as the degrees of freedom. And here's how we do that. So for the probability, I'm going to type 1 minus the p-value we just found. So that's the value right here. And so I select that cell, and that's now taken care of. Remember, it's 1 minus the p-value. I now type comma, and I need to select the degrees of freedom, which we had found earlier on. That's the 2 we have right here. So I select that cell. And now that that's done, I close my pair of parentheses. And I click on Enter. And we're done. Our chi-squared statistic, rounded to 3 significant figures, would be 15.2. And so in fact, I'll go back in that cell and I'll reduce the number of decimal places again. So I click on that again, and I reduce all of those. There we go. Okay, so at this stage, we've seen how to find the p-value as well as our chi-squared statistic, but I wanted to show you one more thing, and that is how we can find the critical chi-squared value given two things, the significance level as well as the number of degrees of freedom. To be clear, thanks to this, we won't need to look up a critical chi-squared value in a distribution table. Instead, we can find the critical chi-squared value directly here in Google Sheets. And so right here we have critical chi-squared value at a significance level of 5%, and so if I go in the cell underneath that, once more I go ahead and type equals to, and again I go ahead and type chi. Alright, now to find the critical chi-squared value, just as we did for the chi-squared statistic, we're going to use the chi-squared inverse function again. So remember, that was this function right here, chi-squared.inverse. So I click on that again. Now for the probability, we'll again do 1 minus, and since the significance level is 5%, we'll subtract 0.05. That is 5% expressed as a decimal. So 1 minus 0.05, comma, the degrees of freedom, which remember is in this cell up here, which is 2. And so I close the parentheses and I click on Enter. Done. Our critical chi-squared value, rounded to 3 significant figures, is 5.99. And so I know it's getting repetitive, but again, I'll decrease the number of decimal places. There we go. That's rounded to 3 significant figures, 5.99. That's our critical chi-squared value at a 5% significance level, 4 degrees of freedom equal to 2. And so to finish, I'll also do it for a 10% significance level. So I go in the cell right here, and again I type equals to CHI for chi, and again I select my chi-squared.inverse function, and so I click on that, and this time the probability, well again it's going to be 1 minus, but since the significance level is 10%, it will be minus 0.1. I then type comma, and I select the cell with our degrees of freedom, which again is this one right here. That's a cell with 2. I close the parentheses and I click on Enter. And we're done. The critical chi-squared value at a 10% significance level is 4.61, where I've rounded to 3 significant figures. And there we have it. Those are all the mechanics or manipulations that you need to know how to do to run a chi-squared test for independence using Google Sheets.